A lot of comments we got about parking and a lot of comments about the width of the street. Those were ones that sort of you'll see pop up numerous times over and over. But that gives you sort of a good look at where folks' heads are that have that skin in the game in the downtown area. Mike, you look like you have a question.
Well, my question is, I guess it's not a question, it's more of a comment. When you talked over here about the people that went to the charrette, I'm really quite surprised of the number that did not attend that charrette, because it was well attended.
It was.
There was a lot of people at those things, and I'm just surprised that the business owners and building owners weren't there. I guess that's my comment.
Right.
Megan, do we know, of those that did attend, which is not very many, do we know specifically what their question or their answers were to these questions?
Resoundingly, yes. Change it to two-way.
With everybody that would?
That attended the charrette.
And what about the streetlights?
50-50.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to something that Glenn asked, but the question on the streetlights, was that independent of whether it goes to one, stays one way or goes
It
to
was-
two-way?
yes.
It just was
Yep.
period?
Period. Yeah. There was no caveat to that.
Just curious, this was unintended, but what kind of feedback are we getting with the flashing lights out there in Kemp and Broadway the last couple of weeks? I mean, are we, because that's similar to what
Right.
we're talking about here as far as.
All has been quiet in my office. I have not heard. I don't know, Mayor, are you hearing much?
You know, I'm not hearing it. Are you hearing anything, Rob, from them? Come on up a minute. I'm just not hearing anything on it at all.
Yeah, I've only had one call on that, is all I've had, so, we have ordered a new box for that. So.
No, my question or comment wasn't relative to getting it fixed. I mean, are we inherently trying out going to, doing away with stoplights, but having that flashing red out there the last few weeks?
I think that's kind of what you said in the beginning, is that you had one complaint that is still flashing, right?
Yeah, they, actually, what the complaint was have it one way or the other. We did have stop signs there for a while, and then we got it working to where it would flash.
I will
so-
tell you that I did have more comments when you had stop signs out there. They didn't like that.
Yeah,
That's
there
what
was,
I heard.
there was concern about where we had them and stuff, if they'd tip over into a car or anything like that. And if we did put stop signs in there, I mean, having parking the way we do, I guess we'd have to look at how we're gonna place stop signs so people can see them. Might have to be in the middle of the street.
I guess I will comment on, my observations. I use those intersections daily, coming to work and back, and then usually I'm encountering those intersections when it's fairly busy, right at noon, right at 5, and I rarely see a backlog of cars piled up waiting to come. And in fact, the only time I have seen that is when it's a green light at First Avenue and everybody's rushed up to the Kemp intersection. That's about the only time that there's more than one or two cars sitting at that intersection. So I think the flashing red has shown that if we choose to go away from a lighted intersection or a controlled intersection, that it would function adequately. There will be times when there will be more than a couple cars sitting at the intersection, but certainly it's not going to be a catastrophic event if we did go to stop signs. And for that matter, if we do go to two-way streets and continue to use the stop signs, we will have a significant larger investment in upgrading those lights to get lights going from the opposite direction. But that said, I mean, either way will function fine. I just think that for my money, the stop sign, or even leaving them flashing red lights, if we just choose to leave them lights and not stop signs, makes sense to me.
First off, Megan, I'd like to thank you and your staff for the hard work you put into this survey and getting it done for us. Go back to the charrette. I wasn't able to stay there for the whole day. I had to leave for a little bit, but when we come back and we went through all the things out of all the breakout sessions that were held, it directed, every one of them directed two-way streets. I mean, it was very, very prominent that people wanted two-way streets. And as we sat here recently and went through interviews with companies for retail strategies, I think they all pointed out the importance of revitalizing downtown to return your streets to two ways. So I think it's...
You know, Greg and I were just having a conversation, the difference between streets and roads. And streets, when we talk about economic development, has to do with the impact it has, slowing people down, getting people to invest, spending time, spending a few hours. Roads, point A to point B. And right now, I think if you stood down with a radar when all of those lights are green on Kemp Avenue, you would find it is a road. It's from point A to point B. People aren't slowing down. People aren't seeing what's in storefronts. They're not taking the time. I would be of the opinion that if the financial impact wasn't huge, if it's something that we felt like we could swing, I think it's worth the experiment to give it a shot. I really do. I mean, we don't know what we don't know at this point. And we can sit and we can take surveys all day and we can analyze all day long. But if we have some rubber on the road, let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We've been doing this, or talking about it for the past 3 years.
Right.
And I think we
Frank,
got probably more.
What do you think the financial impact would be to change like First Avenue?
Well, not substantial. You basically, you have to erase the parking on one side to switch it over for traffic from the opposite direction and install the appropriate traffic signage go in the opposite direction. So from a dollar standpoint, it's not a huge investment. One choice of maybe erasing the lines would be to do a seal coat or something that's quick rather than scrub them off with a mechanical method. But Rob and I really haven't put a cost estimate together, but it's certainly not a high dollar project.
Shane, the first comment I want to ask you, because I remember when you did it, when you took us on the tour here a few months ago, the video tour, as I recall you saying we would lose very few, the very first comment is we'll lose parking places. As I recall you said we wouldn't be losing a whole lot of spaces if we were to change. Do you remember?
Yes, yep, and that still holds true. The reason that any parking would change, of course, is one of two things. One, depends on how we approach the intersections. You're going to have to maybe account or leave off a spot that's right next to a stop sign where you wouldn't want somebody to be able to turn or do something different there for parking. And the other one would be if we change the angle of the parking to maybe widen the street portion slightly. When you change those angles, you might lose one spot per block. But that would be something we'd have to look at. Personally, I think the angles of the parking spaces that are out there will work. What we have to do is create an environment where people want to go slower through there if we do change it to two-way. In reality, and people don't, it's all in perception. Out on our county highways, those pavements are only 21 to 24 feet wide, which is about identical to what we would have in between the parking spaces downtown. And there we're meeting head-on 55 miles an hour, and for some reason the perception if we do that downtown that we're going to have nothing but a demolition derby out there, and I don't think that's true. I think people just will have to change their driving habits to slow down and be a little bit more cautious going through there. And once they adapt, it's going to be fine. So,
Shane, you kind of said the key words there. They need to slow down. That's what we want to see end result.
Well, the two things, and they come up in here again, the two things I keep hearing are the street's not wide enough and we're going to lose parking spaces. And being a detail guy, I suspect that what you've said is correct, but I think we need to put some pencil to paper And I think we need to literally lay it out so that we can show people instead of give our opinions on whether it's too wide or too narrow or we're going to lose spaces. And I think the other thing that goes with that is, as long as we're doing that, then I think for each street that this is going to happen with, or potentially happen with, we should have an engineer's cost estimate and time frame for getting that done. I think the time right now is to get some detail on paper that actually is a plan and quit talking about it in general. Because I look at these numbers and I'm wondering, how are we going to make this decision? It's not like 80% of the people are for it. We're within 10%. Well, to me, that's not overwhelming. So I think we need to be able to take the questions of concern, and we should be able to either prove or disprove them. You know, how many parking spaces are we gonna gain or lose, whatever that is, based on the widths of the road and the angle of the parking, like Shane mentioned. But I think now it's the time we have to know those things, and we need to get cost
I
estimates.
tend to agree with you. I think maybe, Shane, you guys can get that worked out pretty darn easy up there and get her done. So let's leave it at that. Let's just plan on you getting that done and find out exactly what it's going to cost. And I would say let's shoot for First Avenue first and go from there. Fair enough?
Fair enough?
Thanks, Megan.
Sure, I
Is
think
there
Greg
anything
has
else?
just a couple comments. Can
Sure.
we, all right?
Boy, keep her short. No, I'm kidding.
I'm Greg Blow, and was part of the planning for the charrette. And certainly, as we've talked about it tonight, the charrette totally recommended after 2 days or so of consideration that we make the streets two-way. I would agree that slowing people down is what we want to do, but what we really want to do is have an economic impact because of that slowing down. And lots of other communities have been doing this. Cedar Rapids is in the process right now. If you go to the Strong Towns website, they can take you through a number of examples. And I'm not sure that starting only on First Avenue will be much of a test for us because we don't have a lot of vacancies there. We're not going to know whether slowing people down, going down First Avenue has much of an economic impact. I think that Kemp's really the test. And I think the two-way is the beginning of what we do with Kemp. There are things like bump outs that we do on the corners maybe. Maybe we involve the art community in putting art into the empty storefronts, do some things, some creative things that are going to change the downtown and particularly Kemp. That's where we're really trying, you know, a street is a platform for economic development. A road is to get you from here to here. And Kemp is a street. And we really need to look at this. We need to slow them down, but the reason we want to slow them down is for them to say, that's a new shop I haven't seen, or look at it in the window there. Let's go take a look at that, or the next time I'm downtown, I'm going to do that. So just a little something to keep in mind. I think we need to think of this from an economic point of view. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Okay. That was good information. Thanks, Megan, for doing that. Absolutely.
If I can, Steve, one comment. If we're going to talk about Kemp, I don't think we look at doing anything very expensive there. If there's some appetite later on to do bump outs and stuff, we certainly don't want to be spending money on lights or something. I'm more in favor of doing something with stop signs, something that can be moved around or whatever without putting a big investment into things.
Yeah, I think, Shane, we'll look at both avenues.
We'll start simple and then, really, because bump outs and that stuff will probably likely include a bigger improvement project downtown, sidewalks, amenities, that kind of stuff,
Right,
probably.
perfect.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I don't want you to get in, at this point, talk about that. I'm saying, because I think that's a bigger project that we have to look at in a longer term, but if we're gonna look at doing a two-way earlier than that, let's just look at stop signs or something, because I don't wanna be spending money on streetlights being revamped four-way, and then they're gonna get taken out in a couple of years.
Right, absolutely. We're gonna keep it as simple as we can at first.
Shane, not to put pressure on you or your staff, I mean, what kind of timetable will we be looking at before we see it come back to us?
Well, maybe, I hope to have something for you by the end of the year. How's that? We got 3 meetings left,
Yeah,
so,
I think that's fair. Gives you some time to look at it.
yeah.
He's gonna look at both.
Yeah, if I'm gonna do it,
You might
I'm gonna
just
do
use-
both, and then we can separate them out and, so they can stand alone if they need to.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 3, discussion on engineering department permittings. And this is Shane. And what Shane is doing, we've had a lot of, I'm going to preempt this just a little bit for you, Shane. There's been a lot of earthwork done in town and big equipment that are out on job sites that haven't been putting up their silt fences or the wattles and things like that. And frankly, we don't know that these things are going on because there is a permitting process for these people to come up to engineering and get that permit, but they're not doing it. And there is no fee currently for any kind of a permit to do this. So you would think they would come up and get it done. So frankly, I'll turn it over to you now and see where this leads.
Okay, so, sometime in the, I'll call it fairly recent past, I think it was around 2010, my predecessor was frustrated with the permits as well as we are right now, for similar reasons. But back then, we had a fee for grading permits and different things. And I think my predecessor felt that in the end, we were punishing those people that actually did come in and get permits and were paying the fees. And then there was a whole nother group of people out there that were doing work without permits. And then there really wasn't a very viable punishment system or way to recapture those folks that weren't coming in and getting permits. So we've kind of been looking at that from the same standpoint. And I guess for lack of it, can you put the overhead on for a second? This document is a excerpt of our ordinance, and it clearly talks about grading permit fees specifically. And that fee is set by the city council based on a recommendation from the city engineer, and it's done by resolution, but it is only set by you folks as the council. So that's what our, and then if it's a bigger project, say that's over 5,000 cubic yards of material, the grading companies and owners are supposed to submit a security. And whether that security is a bond or a cashier's check, or those were the standard methods of acquiring security. Now, we have accepted letters of I can't remember the term now, but letters of commitment to those effects as well in the past. But so what we're trying to do is launch a campaign where we try to educate the public, the owners, the contractors, etc. And so we've recently released this press release, and you might want to zoom back a little bit. Just this is on our website. This was recently published in the Public Opinion on a Saturday, and we have the intention to resubmit this through the public, or to the public through the paper 4 times a year. And we're going to try to focus our next one as we ramp up into the construction season. So it'll probably be March, maybe April at the latest. And along with this, we've been discussing whether or not we'll reinstitute the fees at this time, because obviously whether we collect the fee or don't collect the fee, the result was the same. So we're thinking about instituting fees, and we'll only do that through the council as the ordinance states. And I think so. We've reached out. We've started to look at our peer cities, see what Aberdeen's doing, see what Brookings is doing, see what Mitchell is doing. Mitchell or Madison are the four that I've tried to concentrate on. Got mixed results across the board. Brookings doesn't have a lot of fees, but they do have some. And then Aberdeen, for instance, has a $150 fee to do an excavation in the street. So there are some that are doing fees and some that aren't. We'll probably look at where we landed or ended last time when we were collecting fees. I think we were doing it on a per cubic yard basis with windows or brackets for varying fees, and they weren't very expensive. I believe the most expensive one was $100 plus $5 for each additional 1,000 yards, and that was for projects that were over 10,000 yards. So that's a big project. I mean, a 10,000 yard project's pretty good size for this community.
I think where this really kind of arose at, Shane, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys were all sitting here when we ran into the issues with Stony Point. You know, there wasn't the permit that was taken out, I believe, if I'm not mistaken on that. And then all of a sudden you're going back up there and you're telling, well, you got to have a permit, but it's kind of after the fact. And then you take a look at, there was just some dirt, thousands of yards moved over there by Hobby Lobby that we have to be very careful about, that it gets put into the floodway. And frankly, there wasn't a permit for that either. So then all of a sudden we're back there telling them you got to get in that silt fence. So I think maybe we need to educate these people somehow that it's got to be done. And there has to be a consequence to it if it isn't done.
Yep.
I think that's where you're coming at.
Yep. It's more, we want to do a public outreach education so that we don't have a situation where we contact an owner and they say, well, I thought our contractor was going to get the permit. And then you visit with the contractor and they say, well, I thought the owner had gotten the permit. So there's really dysfunction in the process so that some people don't understand who needs to get a permit and when. And I think we need to get some more information out there to those folks, kind of redevelop the awareness and nudge all these folks to be committed to our process here. And whether that includes and I don't want our fees to be absorbent, but going back to that excerpt that I pulled out of the ordinances, it says grading permit fee will be doubled if the grading permit is not obtained prior to commencement of grading operations. Well, right now, double is zero, so there really isn't much of a punishment. Now, there are other avenues in our ordinance that would allow me to hit them for a $200 fine per day on a grievance, and I don't think that we want to go down that road very far or very long either. I think we want to kind of, our goal is to get compliance, not punish people. So we have to do both, education and probably a little bit of punishment if they continue to ignore what we desire. So that's really what I wanted to present to you, is that we're finding things that aren't working very well and trying to find a path to make it better.
Shane, do we have any checks and balances on any of these projects that are going on? I mean, when somebody takes out a permit to build something to begin with, is there any checks and balances there that they're doing it properly, and especially when they're moving dirt?
Well, the bigger projects are the ones that are easy to follow.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the example where it broke down, though, was, and I hate to use Hobby Lobby in a bad context here, but it's out in the open and people see what happened there. So Hobby Lobby gets a permit, and by doing their permit, they implied with their construction project. So they move all their grading dirt off of the project and had an agreement with the adjacent landowner to temporarily stockpile the dirt there. That in and of itself wasn't terribly egregious, but I'm assuming that dirt was going to then leave the site or somehow be disposed of. Well, ultimately, we get to the end of the construction season, and what was decided by various owners of land and the project out there was to just simply grade it out over a large area adjacent to the Hobby Lobby property. Well, it's enough dirt and enough area that was disturbed that should have required more permits and a bigger process than what happened. You know, they just did a handshake deal, went out there and started moving dirt around, and of course, by the time our office gets wind of it, the work's about done. You know, it took them 3 days to grade out the pile. So, you know, unless I'm standing there watching every moment of every day, those things are gonna happen. And so really, we need to plug those holes in that communication and make not only the owners that are going through with those kind of projects, but their contractors, you know what our process is, and somehow find a equitable way to make them accountable for not following the process. So that's our goal. We'll start small and aim high eventually. But
And not to lay it back on the contractor all the time, but I think that would be the easiest direction to go. I mean,
well, but when you're levying fines,
Yeah, I
in the
think-
end, we only have the property owner to.
Yeah, one of the things I know we've talked about is when people come up to get a building permit on a small job, just they're building a house. You know, they get that permit, they get all the things from Kenny. You know, there should really be some kind of a checklist that says, okay, on number 1 or number 2, you need to have all permits required. And one of the permits is this grading permit. Walk next door, get that permit from you.
Right.
I think there has to, I mean, we can't just say that these people, you know, I mean,
Well-
should know that. We should have to
Right.
tell them that you
But-
gotta get it.
When they get a building permit, the grading that's associated to that building is automatically approved along with that. So those aren't the ones that I'm worried about. It's the ones that purely get dirt on a large scale that are moving stuff around without a building permit, because we're gonna catch all of the ones with the building permit. That's not an issue. Hobby Lobby in and of itself had a permit to handle that dirt. It's what happened to the dirt pile that left the site after the fact that was the issue. So what we need to do is, like I said, the first thing and foremost is education, but we also need to enhance some type of punishment system. And in this community, we do require most contractors to have a permit to work in the city limits on the building officials' side. We haven't really established that too much on the engineering side. So we may even look at a similar thing. So say that, say to do business, grading business in Watertown costs $50 a year annually, or $100, or whatever that fee would be. We could yank their license if they continue to ignore the permit process. I mean, there are ways to get that done, but to make it equitable is also a key. So
I was actually glad to see him moving that out there, but, because if you remember right about 3 months ago, I sat at this chair and I said, how long is long enough for a dirt pile to sit there? But what was the resolution to it? I mean, as far as taking
still
care of it?
working on it.
Okay.
so.
Any other questions for Shane while he's here? We're running with plenty of time. If there's something else that you want to throw out there while he's right there, I'm okay with it. Otherwise, we'll move on. Wow, you got off easy tonight, Shane.
Actually, Shane, as long as you're there, how is the bike trail work progressing out there on the Memorial Park area?
I believe they're just about finished with paving.
It is done.
Okay, it was
Yeah.
closed on Friday. I didn't
It's
know if
done
they
today.
finished it today or not. So apparently they finished the paving, and so now they'll just have to do the grading work and, you know, seeding and finish stuff now. So it went very well. Actually, it went pretty fast.
Perfect. Thanks, Shane.
Will they go right into the spring then? That'll start away the spring.
Well, the seeding and grading work, or finish work will be,
I mean, starting with the rest of the trail now then, not finishing this one, but
there is no current trail plan on the books for next year at this time.
Okay, let's move on. Thanks, Shane. Just discussion on retail marketing for Watertown. I gave you all a little packet. This is something that you've all had in a while back. We had discussed retail marketing. I have some things that I kind of want to show up there on the board. We'll wait for Shane to get back. And I just kind of want to, excuse me, bring you up to date on what's happening around town. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to give you some ideas. So Shane, can you throw that up there for me? Yep. Let's put up the plat out there on the Coho property. Wrong plat. That's okay. We got lots of time. Megan, did you mess up the computer? Doggone it. Nope. But you are getting closer. Don't you hate that when that happens, Shane? Then all of a sudden you get sweat on your forehead and stuff, and it's sparkling over there. We can see it. Yeah.
all the way back to the neck.
Well, what we're going to bring up is we're going to bring up the 8th Avenue plat out there out by west of Hobby Lobby, and I just wanted to give you an update on what's actually happening out there and what could happen. And then there's numerous things that Shane will also be looking at for us. There you go. Why don't you just stay there with that pool cue there,
Yep,
Shane, and we
okay.
can help out. And
So, can I just enumerate here? So this is a preliminary plat. These lots do not currently exist as such. Trav's Outfitter has been platted. We're waiting to plat the rest of these
right.
according to whatever develops out there.
Okay, so hang tight there a little bit,
Yep.
and just, let's take the pool cue right down there by Trav's. Is it a pool cue, guys? I don't know. It sure looks like it to me. You know, looks like a pool cue. Okay. So anyhow, you got Trav's Outfitter that has that piece of ground there, and I think Trav's is moving along rather good right now, is what I'm hearing. The next lot over, that one plus half of the next one, has also been purchased by a outside realtor, actually a developer. And that particular lot has been, I don't think it's closed yet, but it's right in the process of closing. The next lot and a half has also been taken an option to purchase by the same one. Now, I think you want to go to the west. There you go. That's also been a letter of intent by the same purchaser of that first lot I was telling you about next to Trav's. The next one, if you go over one more towards east, that one is still open. The one to the right, that one on the corner, there's been a letter of intent that's been signed for another facility right there. And if you go to the top, go up one more, that particular one had a letter of intent, but that one now has moved over to the west in that lot right there. The one to the right also has people interested, but there's no letter signed. So I wanted to give you a little update on what's going on there in this particular area. Then also, what we're looking at, Shane, is you're going to be up on the property to the north up there, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to be looking at getting that Clomar and Lomar done up there, if I'm not mistaken, so we can bring that in and they can plat that, just so you guys understand. He's going to do that so that they know where the floodway is, the floodplains are. Now, I will also tell you that I believe there's soon to be on the Morris property over there, which is west of, just to the west. If you see that line, can you kind of outline that just a little bit, Shane, where that goes? Right. Now, Morris owns everything over to the water, to the river over there. And then, of course, kind of goes even off to the south there a little bit, because Endress only owns that little corner over there on 26, so they own all that, Shane, right down in the bottom too, on the bottom left. Yep. No, Endress owns just a little bit, but Endress owns to the west further over. Or am I, where's 23rd Street? Okay, yeah, so Endress owns right in there, Morris owns, but I guess where I'm coming at is I just want to let you know that that has now been put up for sale, and they are looking, there's actually people that are interested in purchasing that property. So why I'm actually showing you this retail strategies tonight is I think what we have here in front of us for Watertown is a huge opportunity. Since Hobby Lobby came in, there's activity. And I believe that retail strategies that was here once on Skype and once in front of us, it has a real opportunity for Watertown that can take our story to the Chicago area for the ICSC conferences, to the Las Vegas ICSC conferences, to the New York conferences. I believe, in my opinion only, Bruce, I'll use your words there, in my opinion only, we need to, as a city, jump on the Hobby Lobby bandwagon right now. This particular contract, if we were to do it, is a 3-year contract. If you recall, they would come up here, they would do an assessment of our properties, what's available throughout the town, also including uptown or downtown, whichever way you want to call it, the Highway 212, the mall, all of that. They're going to look at every property that's available and be able to show that to folks. One thing that retail strategy does for us, just so you understand, they actually are different than Buxton. Buxton will go out and they'll get all the information. They're very detail-oriented in the numbers, but they don't really go out and set up the appointments with you as much. They do tell you that there's X amount of businesses that might fit into those parameters. And Megan, you can attest to that. We were with Buxton a number of times. And then the retail coach, if you remember those folks, he came in and told us a great story. But frankly, I have not heard anything from him since the day he left that chair that you're sitting in right now, Shane. I haven't heard from him. Now, Matt is, of course, kind of on the gun and telling me that we need to get going, And I have visited with a lot of people, and I really, truly think that we have an opening the next 2 years here to bring in more retail. And I would appreciate you guys if you would think about this. It's $40,000 a year. They want a 3-year contract, but you only have to sign up for 1 year at a time. Kind of weird, so you don't have to have that second year if you don't feel as good. But I think he was very upfront with all of us that it takes 24 to 30 months to really to get something moving and get something going for Watertown. So there is an opening here. There's a real opportunity for Watertown to grow in that area and throughout Watertown. I would encourage us to do that. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that. I'll let you guys ask me any questions you want. Hopefully I have the answers for you.
It's not really just tied to this area. I mean, I think it's very, very important that we look at an organization such as that to help us really get Watertown going. I mean, we're right on that footstep of taking the next step into retail, and like you say, with Hobby Lobby, you see there's some activity going out there, but that's only one step. I mean, there's a long ways to go, and I think I was pretty impressed with their presentation.
Yeah.
So,
and it is one step. And I was in a meeting with Mike and Bill and myself and others, and we were talking about industry expansion. And frankly, you know, on that particular side of it, the city of Watertown does have an organization that pushes the industries, and they brought in companies for us, but they're not going to do retail. So frankly, retail has always been kind of up to the realtor that owns the land, and they go out and get it. So I think somebody needs to take the step and needs to step out there and say, we're going to do this, and I think we can do it as a group, as a city.
Shelley, refresh my memory. Have we budgeted anything for this in 2017? Okay, I didn't think so.
No, we did not.
I think I've expressed the views with you privately, Mayor, that if we're going to do this, I'd like to do it sooner rather than later. I guess I am disappointed that we're down to only having one organization to choose from. I guess I would have liked to have a little more options to pick from. Not to say that Retail Strategies wouldn't do a good job. I am kind of disappointed that that's the only one that we're considering at this point, but I'd like to see us jump on it sooner rather than later.
Any other comments? If not, I tell you what I'm going to do is I will put this on our next council agenda for approval to get in a contract with these people.
Only comment, I would assume if we're gonna visit with them, part of the retail strategy, though, is gonna be some kind of strategy as far as what we would be looking to go after, because I've had a few people express concerns to me, the city's gonna spend money and bring in somebody that puts them out of business, so I think we need to be cognizant of that.
And I'm going to use you as an example, Bill. Yourself and Larry's Lumber and Cashway and Menards. Do we need a Home Depot? I don't think so. I don't think that's something that we would really go looking for. I would tend to agree with you that we don't want to do that.
Well, and I know one of the comments that the gentleman had, a lot of what he had was restaurant-type business, but there's also a lot of restaurateurs in town here, so I just think, I'm not opposed to the concept, I just want to think that we'd be a little bit aware of what we're going to send them out to do.
And within this packet, if you look at it, I think what they're telling us that they will do is there's 30 businesses they will introduce to Watertown every year that we have an opportunity to talk to and see if we can't get them here. And I would tend to agree with you. I mean, do we need a whole lot more restaurants? Some people would say, yeah, we need some, but I do think we need women's clothing, we need men's clothing, we need certain things that we're short of. So I think we have that opportunity to go after them, and I believe we should.
Some of that stuff, actually, since we've already had a Buxton study, there's some of those things that came up in that were shortcomings that people are going out of town. So, I guess as long as we kind of pursue those avenues, that would be my,
Mayor, if I remember right, when they gave us their presentation, didn't they have part of that in there that they work with existing retailers also that to help them beef up their business? So.
Right, they do. And I really think, Bill, on your point there, one of the things that's high, and Buxton was that way also, it showed the leakage, where's the leakage going? And we need to address that. And I think, I don't think any of us here have the time to go out and try to call retail stores and say, we need this Dress Barn, or we need a Kohl's, or we need something like that. But they have those connections. They have them built in already that we can talk to those folks. So I truly think for Watertown it would be to our benefit. Are we okay with that?
Not only that, I think a lot of your cities our size are looking at organizations such as that to get in front of these retailers, and if we're not out there promoting it.
And I think we have a golden opportunity. When you look at the where Watertown sits on I-29, we're 100 miles from Sioux Falls, we're 35, 40 miles from Fargo. Brookings, I would say, is in a little more precarious position because it's so easy to jump in Brookings and go 30 minutes and you're in Sioux Falls. And with the size of Sioux Falls, they really have it going for the retail, but I think we have a golden opportunity here. So if it's okay with you guys, I will put this on the next agenda, and I would say if during the meantime, the next 2 weeks, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask me about that.
The proposal they gave us, is it final, or is it negotiated, or what goes forward on that?
They have a final contract that has been proposed for Watertown, and I can send all of you a copy of it so you can take a peek at it and see if I haven't already. All right. Hey, Justin, did John bring us that sheet? He was going to bring us that, and he said he had copies. I don't see him here.
Yeah, I don't see him either, Mayor. I hadn't heard anything from John.
Okay, I was just going to mention, because in the council agenda tonight on the consent agenda, I just kind of wanted to get a little idea of what was to do for what type of equipment that we were looking at. Do you have that?
Sure. Actually, I want to retract that statement, Mayor. I was at a loss at what, John, you meant. We have a few of those around city government, but I did receive a document from John. He said that he'd be here at 7 o'clock, and he would have this document in tow, a list of various items that he'd be bidding.
It's kind of too late at 7. It should have been here now, I think. Do you have a copy of it all? Why don't you grab that? Let's put it up on the board if you can.
Will do.
What I wanted to do here and why Justin is bringing this up to you guys is that on the city council agenda tonight, under the consent agenda, I thought it was important that you understand what John is actually looking at, what he wants to put in bids for, to go out for bids. He's actually looking at 22 cardio machines for the new wellness center, which is 9 treadmills, 4 ellipticals, 2 recumbent bikes, 2 upright bikes, 2 new steps, 2 rowers, and 1 step something. Mill? Is that what that is? Not sure what that is.
That's
You can see I don't get out to the rec center enough, do I? So anyhow, this is, when you look at the consent agenda, there wasn't anything under supporting documents, and I wanted you to understand what is happening here and what he's looking for. He expects it to run anywhere from $80,000 to $90,000. Okay, fair enough? You all up on that one? The next thing that I also wanted to mention, which there wasn't any supporting documentation for on the approval of the consent agenda, was E, the authorization for the police department to accept grants for the Homeland Security purchase SWAT helmets and sniper rifle scopes. What the deal is on those is that we currently have them. They're quite old. The rifles and things get bounced around. The scopes get bounced around. This is a grant where they're going to replace existing equipment that they have, and I kind of wanted that to have supporting documentation also, and it wasn't there. And I will tell you folks that under the consent agenda and all the council actions, we need to have that supporting documentation, so everybody has been notified that they need to have that there in order for us to know what the heck they're looking for the public. So that being said, I don't have anything else on my agenda. Anything that you guys want to discuss on future agendas? Otherwise, I will adjourn this meeting, and we will be back at 7 o'clock for the city council meeting. Thank you.